Today we are joined by Graham Wright, the keysmith of Newmarket's Tokyo Police Club. How's it going, man?
It's going great. I prefer the key master, like in the Matrix Reloaded. Imagine I just opened this and I just had all the...
Yeah. So 2007, you guys are a bunch of 20-year-olds. You're just coming up on the scene. David Letterman. Talk about that.
Yeah, we did Letterman 3 times before he wrapped up. Each time was sort of uniquely bizarre. I mean, it's a very strange thing to do. It's not designed for indie rock bands, and it was wonderful. And they had a lot of indie rock bands on at the time. It was a really like astonishingly welcoming place for considering, you know, what kind of music we were doing and how small potatoes it really was in the grand scheme of things. But the operation was like a professional union shop network television show, a legendary, iconic piece of television. So, you know, it was kind of, there's guys that do everything. You know, there's guys that move the lights, and there's guys that move the microphone, and there's guys that move the sets, and yada, yada, yada. And they assume it's going to be the same thing for the bands, because if you're at a certain level, it's like that. But we weren't at that level, which means that, you know, you got to show up at like 5 a.m. for the load in, and then you like wait, and then you set up your gear, and then you wait and wait and wait, and then you sound check your gear, and yada, yada, yada. So it's this sort of, if it's just you, it's this intensely long day. And our record label booked us, you know, with supreme record label generosity, booked us a hotel room. I'm sure the cost was recoupable, but they booked it for the wrong night. So the night before we played the David Letterman show for the first time, we slept on the hardwood floor of our manager's like 3-roommate Hell's Kitchen apartment in New York.
Oh, jeez. And
woke up, you know, the alarm starts blaring at 4 a.m. and you get up and shower, and then you go to the Ed Sullivan Theater and take all your gear in. It's freezing cold and all that. Anyway, and then you wait all day, and then you play 1 2-minute song, and then you're done, and your adrenaline is like just through the roof, and you just have to leave. Yeah. So the first time was just bizarre. You know, we had the band play tambourines. Our friend Chris Sane, the great producer, came up with this idea, like, you guys should buy 30 tambourines and have the band play them. And they did, which was very cool. And they let you hang around after. Like, that's the other weird thing. The show ends, and everyone just kind of splits, and you're just still there on the set. And no one's like, don't sit at the desk, don't go behind the keyboards. And so we have all these pictures of like us at Letterman's desk or me behind Paul Schaefer's keyboards. So it's, yeah, it was entirely a trip, top to bottom.
So like I said, I'm sure the nerves were just through the roof the first time, because you guys, it was your US debut on television. Oh, yeah. Were the nerves any different going into your second and third time?
Well, the second time was rough because it was the day Elephant Shell came out. And this is in 08 now. And we'd done so much press, and we've been sound checking, we've been doing gigs. It was just like, you know, go, 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 as you sort of have to do when the moment is upon you.
Right.
Dave's voice was just gone. And he woke up in the morning and he was like, yeah.
Oh boy.
And you know, and then you're up, it's 5 a.m. You know, you're up, you have to be at the studio. There's no way to like treat yourself kindly or anything. And so we had to play Tessellate with him being like, I don't know, man. Like, I can't sing. I don't have a voice. I'm just gonna have to croak my way through it as best as I possibly can. So that was rough. You know, we pulled it off as best we possibly could. But that was, you know, we watched it. We got together with the Saddle Creek guys and everything that night, watched in a hotel room. And it was sort of like, everyone was like, nope, I don't want to lie and say it's perfect, you know, but also no one wants to be a dick about it or wants to be a downer about it. And ultimately, it kind of didn't seem to matter that much,
right?
Luckily.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a downer. And then the third time, we were like, wow, the first time we were so nervous. The second time, we were so frightened.
Right.
And you know what it is? We're in this sort of basement, little closet dressing room, just sitting there watching a little closed circuit TV of the stage, thinking and thinking, and all worked up. It's nothing like a gig. We were like, what would make it like a gig? Invite all our friends, get beers. And so we just brought like as many of our pals from New York as we could cram into the dressing room. Just like cranked PBRs all afternoon, went out and played Boots of Danger. And we were like, oh yeah, we nailed it. That's how you do it. You just got to relax, which is honestly the lesson of our career, really.
So around that same time, you were also beginning to tour internationally and played Glastonbury. What was it like as a young band to play alongside artists like the Killers, Arctic Monkeys, The Who, and those type of people so early on in your career?
Well, the thing about a festival is that you don't really necessarily feel like you're playing alongside those guys, you know, like there's different backstages, especially when you get to a level of like the Foo Fighters or the Who. They just like, there's I don't know if you've ever been backstage at a festival, but it's sort of like a wide array of like RVs or trailers or whatever. And there's like a catering, there's a lot of tents with food or booze or whatever. There's cool VIP areas. Oftentimes it's very fun. Oftentimes it's kind of underwhelming. But if you're the Foo Fighters, that's not your world. You have your own version of that just for you, often another place entirely that like my pass won't get me into. So like if I see Dave Grohl, which I never have, I'll see him like when he gets out of an SUV next to the stage and goes up the stairs onto the stage, and then he comes off the stage into an SUV and disappears again. And you know, if you're Dave Grohl or Anthony Kiedis or Tom York, you honestly have to do that because people will not leave you alone and it will suck. So that's one of the things I like about being more of a small time band is that we can just kind of vibe backstage and I can really experience it. We're not siloed off at all. And no one cares. No one cares about me. They don't know who I am. That being said, playing those festivals rules, and being there to bask in it and, you know, walk past Jay Mascis, who's just kind of like standing in one spot, looking around, vibing is.
So, like most bands that hail from a GTA suburb like you guys, you started your career playing shows in downtown Toronto. So I want to know if there was like a specific venue that you have fond memories of that you'd say played a pivotal role in helping you break into the Toronto music scene.
Yeah, I mean, we started playing gigs at this place called the Cathedral, which is part of a venue called the Big Bop. It's right at Queen and Well, it's not anymore, right at Queen and Bathurst. If you go to Queen and Bathurst today, you will encounter a very expensive furniture store called CB2. If you can imagine that like nice old Toronto building that's been all restored with the bricks all cleaned off, if you imagine it just painted purple and it had 3 on every floor, it had a different venue, the Reverb, the Cathedral, and Holy Joe's.
Wow.
And we played there a lot. So it wasn't like nice. I don't know if it was cool or not. You know, even by the time we got to it, it was sort of in its later days. But that's the venue that we sat. That's the one I sort of think of as like our honest entree into the scene, such as it is.
You guys should go back and do a reunion show there, but branded as Tokyo Police Club at a furniture store. I think people would sell that out for sure.
It's been discussed. There's been a number of like, especially when we did the 10-year anniversary of our first EP 5 years ago now, Jesus. There was conversation about like, would it be cool to go there and do an interview or play a set inside? And we have like, they don't care. That doesn't mean anything to them. You know, to the people that own and like shutting down the store where sofas are $14,000 for 2 hours for us to play a gig, they're losing the sofa money and they're not getting anything from a bunch of scrub assholes who can't afford sofas playing there.
You mentioned your 10-year anniversary. It kind of brings me right into my next question so smoothly. A project that I really enjoyed was 10 songs, 10 years, 10 days. We're going to take a bit of a deeper dive into a couple of the covers from the album. But first, what was the idea behind it? Or was it sort of just like a decade-long work in progress?
No, that was a rare full record label publicity stunt initiative that was actually turned out to be a really good idea. And we were touring Champ really heavily. You know, that was of all of our records, that was the one we really went fully to the wall with. And we had between like month-long tours, we had, I think, 17 days off where we could like be home before we had to get on a plane and go to another tour. And the label, in their infinite wisdom, were like, what if you did 17 covers spanning 17 years? And we were like, what if we went to our houses for a second and like had a shower and did laundry? So we negotiated it down to 10 years. And yeah, they were like, this would just be a cool thing to keep the publicity rolling. It would be kind of they found a studio in LA we could do it at for free. So that like, we kind of could do it for really low investment, hopefully high return. And then it's been long enough now that I can admit we fraudulently pretended to solicit audience votes for what songs we were going to do. We chose them all ourselves, obviously. You don't leave something important like that up to democracy.
Not.
But we did honestly do a song a day. You know, that part was real. We were in LA and we would spend a day recording a song and mix it and then release it the next morning and go to the studio and do another song.
Really? So you actually did record the songs one song per day, and then the whole mixing, mastering, everything released the next morning?
Yep, banged it through. The only song we finished whatever the first day was, we finished really fast. And so, because Mike from Passion Pit was on the Jimmy Eat World song we did on day 2, but he could only come to the studio on day 1. So we finished the day 1 song fast, and then we laid down a bit of the day 2 song to get Mike's vocals on it, and then finished it the next day. But other than that, everything was honestly banged up.
Man, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. So while we're talking about these covers, I want to discuss the obvious ones right away. So Since You've Been Gone and Party in the USA, two
Yes.
massive hits. So what's the backstory there, and what inspired you to cover mainstream pop songs?
Well, it's funny to think about this now because in 2021, mainstream pop songs are what's cool. You know, like the like if you're an indie rock band, you want to be associated with Taylor Swift or with Carly Rae Jepsen or whoever. That's cachet. But back in like 10, 11, it was still a little bit. There was still the last lingering vestiges of like the pop wars, the sellout wars. But anyone that was in a band just knew that those songs were good and that it was stupid to make distinctions between genres. And especially because we had finished making Champ and we'd learned so much about songcraft and about arrangements and about, like reaching a broader audience in the sense of like, oh, there is a way that you can learn to process your ideas out into the world that will make them more understandable to a greater audience. And when you learn how to do that, it becomes very appealing, obviously, because having a big audience is cool. And so it was really attractive to us to do those songs, because we loved them. They were just like fun and we identified with them. And it felt very low pressure because at that point people would take it as a joke.
Yeah.
People would take it as like, oh, they're playing a Kelly Clarkson song, like, ha, ha, ha. Nobody takes that.
USA is a banger.
It's a banger. It's like a perfect piece of writing. And those two that you mentioned were easily the most fun songs we did in that session because like doing Under Control by the Strokes, you're like, oh God, I love Under Control by the Strokes. Like, you got to get this right.
Mm-hmm.
But those two is just like, yeah, we love them. And I think that's the ultimate legacy of that project for us was that we had to work so fast and we had to get inside these really well-crafted, smart songs that we just like internalized super quickly all these lessons about like how a pre-chorus can lead into a chorus in the most interesting way, or how dynamics can work, or whatever. And we didn't know we were learning because we were going so fast. So then the process of writing Force Field, our next record, was largely a process of like unreeling those lessons and starting to identify them and learn how to apply them.
So another thing that we love to do on this show is break down where titles and names come from. And I must say, Melancholy and the Infinite Radness is definitely in the upper echelon of all-time album names for me. So was there an inspirational nod to the Pumpkins there? Did you guys just think it sounded cool?
No, it would be ridiculous. We were like, what do you mean by the Pumpkins? I've never heard that album. No, of course it was a joke. I guess it transpired from the fact that Dave had done some photos with a pal of his where they just smashed a watermelon, like what you see on the cover of both of them. And he was like, I just think these pictures would be a really cool cover. We didn't have a name, and we were in our manager's office, just, basically being like, I remember being tired. It was like anytime you're in a meeting, you're usually in the middle of a tour, you're kind of zonked, you're like drinking coffee. And it was like, okay, point of order, like we can all go home after we finish this meeting, and the last thing we have to do is decide on a title. And I think it was Greg was just like, we should just call it Melancholy and the Infinite Radness, and we all laughed. Like, great. And it was really refreshing and freeing because like Force Field and Champ, we named Champ because we got an email being like, you guys needed to have named the album yesterday. Name it now. Email me back within 5 minutes with an album name. And we like went to a bookstore and just started flipping through dictionaries and like pointing at words. And that's it. Greg found Champ. And Force Field, we went through a billion titles for it. Thought about it. Overthought it. It's so important. So to come up with a title, just being like, oh, that's funny. Oh my God, we can use that. It doesn't have to be a big process. It was very, it felt like we cheated somehow. So it was a nice way to name an album, but there's no story. It was just a joke. Not only was it just a joke, it's the joke you think it is. There's no layers, there's no bits, there's no references. It's like, what if we change the name of the Pumpkins album a little?
That's why we love it, asking the question so much, because I don't think there's like a more overthought thing in the world than what goes into a music title in some way.
This is a good one to start off. Elton John or Billy Joel?
Billy Joel.
All right, Miley Cyrus or Kelly Clarkson?
Miley.
Tokyo Hotel or The Police?
The Police.
Connor McDavid or Jim Carrey, Newmarket's own?
Jim Carrey.
Jimmy Eat World or Queens of the Stone Age?
Jimmy Eat World.
Arcade Fire or The Killers?
Arcade Fire.
Billy Squier or Wheatus?
Wheatus.
Chicken or steak?
Steak.
Sam Roberts Band or City and Color?
Sam.
Death from Above or Death Cab?
Ooh, Death Cab.
The Replacements or the Strokes?
Replacements.
Sum 41 or Billy Talent?
Billy Talent.
Ending off on a bang, Freddie Anderson or Jack Campbell?
TBD.
Last thing I kind of want to talk about here, your other venture, Girlfriend Material. I assume you suffered some early setbacks due to the pandemic, but what was the inspiration behind the project and what are the plans going forward with it?
Well, we managed to sort of knock out the first album and the little tour we did with it before the pandemic. And indeed, like, I actually we drove back from our tour, our West Coast Canada tour, in late February 2020. So like, really, I drove from Vancouver to Toronto in the year of the pandemic, which was, I'm really grateful for, to have got the chance to do that. But you know, it started as I made this this no budget comedy horror movie with my friends, and there was a big scene in it that took place at a party, and I needed just sloppy punk rock music for the party, and I sort of realized that none of the people I could get free music from were in sloppy punk rock bands, and I had no budget for the music, but I did have a Telecaster and a computer I could record on. And I was like, I don't know, surely I can write, they don't need to be good, they just need to be fast and loud, which is a genre I've never written, and I've always been Captain Acoustic Guitar, finger picky, thinky. And you know, I was working on the score for the movie and spending all day just looking at scenes and my brain leaking out of my ears. And so one day I was like, after dinner, I'm just gonna buy. When you get a new guitar, you get the You ever have a Grolsch beer? You know, the you pop the top.
Yeah.
The red washers from Grolsch beer are the best strap locks. That's I think most guitar players know that, but that's the life hack.
I didn't know that.
They're better than real strap locks. You just put the strap on, smack them right over, and never fall. And you get to get beers to get them. So win.
Grolsch is a good beer too.
Grolsch is a good beer. So I got a new guitar. Fender was like, "Hey, we're making this new series of guitars. Do you guys want some?" You know, guitar companies are not always sending you guitars as gifts. So I got this Telecaster. And so I was like, well, I'll go to the beer store and I'll get a few Grolsches and I'll drink them and I'll pop things on and I'll write 6 1-minute long punk songs tonight. And I did. And then the next morning I wrote 6 more. And I was like, I haven't written 1 song in 3 years, let alone 6 songs in 12 hours. And they're kind of better than they need to be. I kind of like these songs. Maybe this is more than just movie schmutz. Maybe this is something I want to pursue. And at that point, Josh had just moved back to Toronto. He'd been living elsewhere for a while. And I was really happy to be hanging with him again. I was like, maybe get Josh on board with this, find a drummer, find a bass player, drink some beers, just make these songs. Mm-hmm. And I'd thought of the name Girlfriend Material years before and had just been, sitting in a notes app waiting for the right band. And so I just sort of smashed them all together. And then slowly I got Jake Boyd, Colorado, or now not of Colorado, but at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Jake
my
Boyd, Girlfriend Material.
Now of Girlfriend Material. And also I speak to you right now from an apartment I've been living in for about just shy of 4 years. And when I was looking for the apartment, I happened to be at a bar where I ran into a friend of a friend and he invited me to join the party he was at. And I overheard this guy talking about how he was going to buy a house and he was kind of sad to be giving up his awesome, cool loft apartment. And I was like, hello, may I move into it? And so I just made friends with this guy just to take his apartment, just explicitly to be as soon as and I would text him every week to be like, hey man, because I didn't want to rudely just say, may I have your apartment now? So I just befriended him out of politeness, basically. But as I did that, I found out that he was from Newmarket. He was a bass player. He was a punk rock guy. We liked all the same bands. We got along super well. And eventually I was just like, oh, you should just be in this band I'm making. And Joe Graham, became the bass player and I got the apartment.
That is a win-win if I have ever.
That is a hell of a happy ending for sure.
I didn't want to cut you off, but I did want to let you know, and Alex himself know, the movie Clean, your independent horror film, actually has a 1 review on IMDb, 10 out of 10 stars from me 16 hours ago.
Is there anything the world can expect from either Girlfriend Material or Tokyo Police Club in the year 2021? We'll just give you the stage for a couple seconds to plug anything upcoming.
Tokyo Police Club, we got these drive-in gigs coming up. That's we might go on tour in the fall. That seems incredibly impossible, but also maybe everyone will be vaccinated. So that might be coming up, but no promises. Girlfriend Material, probably not till next year, honestly. Just as we sort of I just want to get the guys back in the same room. It's not fun to do it remotely. I'm finishing up a solo record. So a third thing. So that's on the go. And then Dave has a solo record he just released the first song from it. So that's rolling out soonish, and then mine will come out, in 2 or 3 months.
Lots of fun stuff coming
Side
up.
hustles for the time being. And yeah, the Tokyo thing, we had planned to take 2020 low key anyway, other than the Champ anniversary. And then that's turned into 2021. And what it means is that we let the machine really roll down. So now to get the songwriting machine, the creativity machine started again is going to take a little bit of doing. So I hope it happens sooner than later, but I can't see there being any new Tokyo music until 20 years ago.
You've been making conversation, but it's just a string of empty words. You've been carving out a smile, all you wanna do is burst. Well, there's nothing